Hello YouTube, my name is Myles Anderson. I'm a professional joke explainer, and today I'm explaining the jokes of Mike Huckabee, one of the best comedians working today. So here we are at the Improv. This is Mike Huckabee in his early career doing stand-up. He actually became such a great stand-up comic that Americans elected him the governor of Arkansas. Just another political figure in a long tradition of American politics who is so funny they got elected to a major office. Can't wait to watch.
Remember that? These are the judges down here. Can I pay you guys now, or do we want to wait till after the show? That's how we do it in Arkansas.
There's a tiny little joke about Arkansas corruption off the top there. Yeah, you know, the audience loves it because they know that is, you know, how politics works in the South. There's a lot of bribes with judges and Southern lawyers and, you know, police departments covering up crimes and stuff like that. So just a little funny observation off the top. Great stuff.
Which leads people to sometimes say the 5 most feared words of an Arkansas politician. Will the defendant please rise? Band is great. Thank you, guys. You're terrific. Let's hear it for the band. Quite honestly, I have no idea why I'm here. They said this is DC's funniest celebrities. I don't live in DC. I'm not funny. And I'm obviously not a celebrity. And if you think I am, let me explain to you. When I started running for president, you realize how embarrassing it is to go to places and nobody knows that you're running for president? My press secretary and I went to Colorado. We were doing an event. All these stories I'm telling you are true. They're not like the things you're used to hearing in Washington. So we go to the rental car counter, and we give them the credit card, and on the credit card it has Huckabee for president. So she gives it to the clerk. The clerk looks up and says, Huckabee for president. President of what?
Great voice there. Great little setup and a punchline about, you know, he's embarrassed that he's running to be the president and nobody knows who he is. So, funny little joke there. President of what? She doesn't know who he is. Great stuff.
I swear to God, that's a true story. It's pretty embarrassing. People wondered how we lasted so long. Part of it was that we saved money by doing very frugal things, like staying in hotels that you would never stay in. Hotels that I would never stay in again. Always go online, they'd find the cheapest place. We were in Houston, near Hobby Airport, which in itself is really someplace you do not want to be. Not even in daylight, much less after dark. This is honestly the truth. I got to the hotel, it was so bad. I called my wife, I said, I'm the only person in this hotel who has sleeves. Everybody here speaks in a foreign language. They all smoke. The place smells like the back end of a barbecue grill. And I said, if I don't call you by 7 in the morning, call 911 in Houston and tell them to look for my body in a chalk outline somewhere on the front, because this place is horrible. And I said, you know, I'm into saving money. I get that. But we got to upgrade the hotel facilities where we're staying, and we kind of did.
That's a great little joke about staying at a seedy hotel. A lot of stand-up comics, you know, they got to stay in bad hotels when they're out on the road doing gigs. And that's a very funny observation, a very funny thing to say to his wife. I'm the only one in this hotel with sleeves on. The specifics of that observation are what make it so funny, because, you know, in impoverished areas, people often don't have sleeves on because sleeves cost extra on shirts. And so if you the less amount of material you have, the cheaper your outfit's going to be.
We went to Motel 6. Boy, that was exciting. By the way, you know, this is an unusual experience for me to be in front of a crowd like this where, you know, this open bar and all this stuff. I mean, I'm a Baptist, we're teetotalers, and we don't normally into that. But I would really appreciate if all of you would get really drunk, because the jokes are a lot funnier when you're smashed. And
that's true. Ideally, the audience is as least lucid as possible, because then they'll be right along for the ride. It's almost like they're in a hypnotic state, and you can just say whatever you want and they'll go nuts. You could tell a whole story about being in Russia and the crowd will just go insane.
It may never ever be a time when I would encourage people to get into heavy drinking, but for the next few minutes, if your neighbor has something they haven't downed, go ahead, take it. You will be glad you did, and I darn sure will be glad you did. Well, one of the things that happened over the course of the months of the campaign was that I went from the clerk who didn't know what I was running for to finally, after months and the Chuck Norris endorsement and a few cool things like that, where he said, I'm going to kick your tail if you don't vote for this guy. People then, by the end of the campaign, when I no longer needed it, started recognizing me. And I now go through airports and people come up to me and, there's two types of reactions. One is the reaction from the person who's a political junkie, like most of you here, who say, hey, Governor Huckabee, I voted for you. And everybody who comes up to me says, I just want you to know, my wife and I, we voted for you. Look, folks, if everybody who says they voted for me actually voted for me, I'd be running around with Sarah Palin right now.
Great reference to Sarah Palin. She was a big comic quite a few years ago. And it was a lot of comedians' dreams to open for Sarah Palin back in those days. So this is an older set, obviously, but a great reference, great joke there.
But it's nice to hear that. But the other reaction I get is from the people who have seen me do something on television. They have no idea exactly who I am. They just know they recognize me. They're not sure why. They're not sure if I ran for president or sold them a used car last year. But the funniest reaction, and I've had this happen, once I've had it happen 50 times. Somebody will come up to me and they'll look like this and they'll say, are you who I think you are? I want you to think about that for a minute. How do I know what they're thinking? And so when they say, are you who I think you are? I just start saying, well, most people think I look like Brad Pitt. What do you think, huh?
That's a funny little thing of him implying that he looks like Brad Pitt, which of course he doesn't, which is most of the humor of that joke there.
And they just turned it with this terrible look on their face and said, no, it wasn't me at all. And they walked away. But it ends the discussion. I've had some people in Seattle. I was in an airport. People thought that I was the anchor of the Atlanta, Georgia television station. Pays pretty good. I'm thinking going down there and checking that out. I had an interesting experience in Salt Lake City. I was changing planes and the guy came up to me and he had this whoa look on his face. And I thought, he's going to tell me he voted for me. Instead he said, man, it's good to see you again. I'm thinking, okay, again. I don't remember you, but yeah, great to see you again. He said, boy, it's been a long time. I thought, partner, it's been longer than you think it has. And finally then he started saying, yeah, when we worked up there at Ogden at that factory, and he started talking about working with him at a factory in Ogden, Utah. And I said, whoa, excuse me, sir, I need to tell you something. I've never lived in Ogden, Utah, I've never been to Ogden.
Yeah, this is already funny. Comedians don't work in factories. They wake up pretty late in the day and mostly do drugs and play video games and sort of wait for the shows to happen. So there's no way Mike would have worked in a factory.
I've never worked in a factory. You must have me mistaken with somebody else, as my feelings were crushed. Anyway, he looked at me, and here's what he said. I'm not kidding you. He said, yeah, you worked up there all right. I remember you. Yeah, that's right. It's a part of my life I absolutely don't remember. All the more reason, by gosh, if I don't remember stuff like that, I should be president right now. Well, craziest moment was on a flight out of Atlanta. I'm in the aisle seat, and the guy next to me in the middle, big guy. Always a big guy in the middle seat next to you when you're in one of those crammed airplanes. And as people are coming down the aisle, folks are saying things like, hey, good race, Governor. Most of them are saying, I voted for you. Of course you did. You betcha.
Great little callback.
Now, the guy sitting beside me, I could see out of the corner of my eye that he was trying to put it all together. He knew that I'd been a governor, I'd run for something, and that everybody in the airplane had voted for me but him. And I finally could see this light go on in his face. He turned to me and said, hey, I know who you are. You're Mitt Romney.
Hey, so that he is not Mitt Romney, and he's just kind of making fun of people who can't really put their finger on who he is, which is again a problem when you're running to be the president. So this is very funny, very folksy, good humor.
I asked to be reseated. Yeah, we had some interesting people run for president in our party. You know, mention Mitt, who had more positions than an underage Chinese gymnast on most every issue.
More positions than an underage Chinese gymnast. That's a great pull from the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Very, very funny to imagine again. Gymnasts are already funny because they move very weirdly, but a Chinese gymnast is even funnier just because, you know, you add a race on top of that. You think of all the funny stereotypes and you just add that on the joke too, which makes it so much funnier. So very good stuff.
And then there was Fred Thompson. I heard Fred actually ran. I didn't see him out there. Every day we'd say, you know, Fred gets up at the crack of noon.
Yeah, that's just a comic roasting another comic for living that comic lifestyle.
And does at least tries to get in one event before 2, and rests for the afternoon and squeezes one more in before 5, and then calls it a day.
In America, it's a huge roast to work less than 14 hours a day. That's sort of a cultural thing that we enjoy here.
Tough life. We've had a great time out there on the campaign trail, and I'm wondering every day, how come I'm not still there? I was really hurt. I mean, John McCain didn't even vet me. It's okay, didn't vet Sarah Palin either, so I guess it's all right. But the good thing for me was that, you know, he did offer a consolation prize. He called and said, look, I'm sorry I didn't even think about you. Sorry you were never on the list, but I've got a special gift for you. A hunting trip with Dick Cheney.
That's the joke about Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney famously shot his hunting partner. That was a little before this set was recorded there, so that's a good little reference joke there for in the topical in the news, you know?
Well, you know, all this talk about Sarah Palin's qualifications, look, it's nonsense. This is a lady who can go into the woods, shoot a moose, and field dress it. Now, folks, when she can do that with a lawyer, she's more qualified than Dick Cheney. You didn't like that one? It's a little rough?
Yeah, that's a risky joke to do in D.C. A lot of lawyers in D.C. I think that joke would play better out in the countryside where lawyers are often hunted and gutted because they're always trying to, you know, foreclose on people's homes.
You ever seen a lawyer field dress? They eat pretty good in Arkansas. We fry them up. Good stuff. This is a rough room. You really do need to drink more. I'm Mike Huckabee. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Wow, risky joke closing on the lawyer bit. But I liked it. I thought that was super funny. It is always funny to me to imagine lawyers being flayed and tortured. Great stuff for Mike Huckabee. You know, he had a great stand-up career for a long time. He had a long-running late-night talk show on the Fox channel as well. And he's been a big voice in America. I would love to see him go on Kill Tony and try it out again. I'm sure we're going to hear from him a lot more in the future. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, you like seeing Mike Huckabee out here killing it, we've got more videos just like this coming out soon. We've also got a Discord and a Patreon, and we're also going to be streaming here and on Twitch in the near future. So we'll see you again very soon.